unto him who has, more will be given.
From Pat's landmark teaching, The Secret Kingdom,
It's true in every aspect of life.
discover the law of use
This is a fundamental principle of human growth and development.
and learn how to make it work for you.
You'll lose what you don't use.
Today on The 700 Club.
It's not Halloween, but the White House wants to scare you anyhow about what the automatic budget cuts will do to you in various states. They've targeted Virginia. They've targeted all the District of Columbia. And a new report has been released by the administration showing how these cuts will hit, as I say, each state.
But critics are saying that it's just another tactic to scare Americans and put pressure on Republicans to make a deal. Ephraim Graham has the story.
The budget cuts kick in at the end of this week, trimming less than 2.5% from federal spending. Still, the White House spent the weekend sending a frightening message to American people.
Once these cuts take effect, thousands of teachers and educators will be laid off, and tens of thousands of parents will have to scramble to find childcare for their kids.
You're going to be delayed. It's going to have a real impact. Calamity, very painful. This is a big deal.
All of those things come from reduced numbers of people fighting fires, engaging in air traffic control. I mean, those are just the facts.
And in a move to get holdout lawmakers to compromise or face unhappy constituents, the president released a state-by-state report about the sequester's impact. It highlights Virginia could see about 90,000 civilians furloughed in the Department of Defense. Ohio will lose more than $25 million in funding for primary and secondary education, putting more than 300 teachers' jobs at risk. And Arizona would lose more than $1 million that provides meals for seniors. One Republican group fired back with an ad, painting the White House tactics as extreme.
Well, this is hardship on a whole lot of people, seniors, middle-class families. A bad idea, a bad idea.
Management by crisis is getting old. The crisis doesn't look real anymore.
Senator John McCain said, quote, "I won't put all the blame on the president, but the president leads. The president should be calling us over somewhere, Camp David, the White House, somewhere, and us sitting down and trying to avert these cuts."
They have plenty of flexibility in terms of discretion on how they spend money. There's easy ways to cut this money that the American people will never feel.
The question is, why won't he work with us? And the answer, quite simply, is because he wants higher taxes.
The president does maintain Republicans are not willing to raise taxes on the wealthy, and their response remains they already did that at the beginning of the year. Ephraim Graham, CBN News.
Well, the bottom line is the president wants a fight. He wants a fight because that's the way they win elections in Chicago, and he's a Chicago street organizer. So that's, you get a fight, and you demonize the other party, and then you trample on him, and hopefully you win. That's not a way to make a deal if you really want to make a deal, and obviously he doesn't want to make a deal. So, but this is nonsense. These sequesters. There's so much waste and fraud in the government. They can cut 2% out of that without any trouble. But instead of that, planes are going to fall out of the sky. The forests are going to burst into flame. The children aren't going to be fed hot lunches. It's just going to be chaos. No, it's a scare tactic. Well, another hot political topic in Washington is back in the news again. Guess what? Gun control. Lee Webb has an interesting story that was released by the Justice Department.
That's right, Pat. The National Rifle Association is attacking the Obama administration for a memo from the Justice Department. The NRA says the memo shows that the administration does not believe its gun control plans will work unless the government seizes weapons and requires national gun registration. The memo questions how effective gun control measures can be by themselves. The Justice Department, however, says the memo does not represent official policy. Meanwhile, a group of black leaders is speaking out against the idea of new gun control laws. Paul Strand has that story.
As the victims of the most gun violence, you'd think African Americans might be leading the charge for more gun control. But these black leaders come together at the National Press Club said no. What's needed are more guns in the hands of law-abiding black citizens. Two of Niger Innis's brothers were shot to death.
They were murdered by criminals who didn't pay attention to gun laws. And they were murdered in communities, the South Bronx and in Harlem, in cities that had the strictest gun control laws.
Innis says probably the only thing that could have saved his brothers would have been good citizens with guns.
Cops can't be everywhere at all times. And the first line of defense often in these circumstances, particularly in these communities, are good people with guns, good people that can defend their communities and their family.
Star Parker points out 41% of whites say they have guns, but only 16% of blacks.
Blacks are the least armed, least protected and defended, and the most assaulted citizens in our country.
For these leaders, the big issue here is protecting citizens' constitutional rights and the Constitution itself.
Light gives us ways that we can step correctly. The Constitution to the United States is the light that allows us to walk consistently and constantly.
Seattle pastor Ken Hutcherson has suffered from bone cancer for the last 4.5 years.
And the pain oftentimes is unbearable. But I came from Seattle to be here because this issue is a lot more important than my health.
African Americans remember a long history of whites controlling them with gun control and Jim Crow laws.
A lot of these so-called gun control laws were nothing more than people control laws.
Parker points out in many black communities,
it's not only the criminals in power, but we've had a history where the law can't be trusted.
So these leaders say what's needed is better armed good people and less of an assault on the Second Amendment. Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
Yeah, Pat, in fact, Star Parker was getting at the intent of the Second Amendment in that soundbite we just heard from her.
It was excellent. And by the way, I misspoke. The Justice Department didn't release that. This was a memo that they prepared, and it was released by the NRA. But it just shows the truth. If you're going to control guns, you've got to confiscate them all, and that's what they want to do. And if they can't do it, then they're not going to have so-called gun control, but we don't want gun control, and these black leaders said it very well. These poor people need to defend themselves against bad people. And by the way, speaking of defending yourself, Hollywood has once again defended itself by giving an award to a motion picture that said Hollywood is the champion of the rights of man, called Argo. It was put out by Ben Affleck as a producer, and it had to do with a film crew going into Iran to rescue some hostages, and that won the Oscar, very heavily watched piece of film. And did you watch any of that?
Last night?
Yes.
Yes, I did.
Did you? What struck you?
That the First Lady, I guess, gave part of the award or made the announcement. Bizarre.
Yeah, one blog I saw said First Lady crashes party. I mean, they had her.
It was really, I didn't get it. I mean, I thought it was kind of odd all of a sudden without any.
Well, the 15 minutes of stand-up at the beginning came out a little bit lame, too. They had some pretty flashy stuff, but I tell you, glitz and glamour, but it's Hollywood. You know, Brokeback Mountain won, 2 homosexual cowboys, and then they have Argo, which is a film crew from Hollywood doing a heroic thing, and Hollywood says, look at this, yay, we'll give them the award. But anyway, I'm glad Ben Affleck, he's sort of been an also-ran in many of these categories, and it's nice to see him win one. All right, Lee.
Pat, the Defense Department's decision to end the ban on women in combat may open the door to women being drafted into military service. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled more than 3 decades ago that only men 18 to 25 should be included in the draft. But legal experts and military historians say the law could be changed now that frontline infantry, armor, artillery, and special operations jobs are open to women. Women have never been drafted into military service before in this country, but a Defense Department report is due in the coming weeks that will assess the legal impact of lifting the ban on women in combat on draft registration. And I will have a special report on the debate over women in combat in just a few minutes, Pat.
Well, I look forward to it. My father served in political office for, half a century or more, and the joke in Washington is that temperance and prohibition was the reward of the hypocrites. And I think what we're seeing now is the draft of women will be a reward of the feminists. They will finally get to see what it's like. And I don't think most women don't want to be drafted into the Army, do they?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't think so, but you know, you're right that has been an issue for several decades now.
Well, it's been pushed by feminists. I mean, why would they want their sisters to be involved in blood and gore and the horror of battle? We've always wanted to protect the feminine persona and give them a special place, put them on a pedestal, give honor to the weaker vessel, the Bible says. Well, they're not going to get any more honor if they get drafted along with everybody else. You know, I tell you, that's the way it is. Lee.
The U.S. and Europe will launch a mission to see if they can knock an asteroid out of its orbit. The plan is to see if it's possible to save Earth from a deadly asteroid in the future by pushing it off course. It's never been done before, but the idea did gain strength after the largest meteor to hit Earth in a century exploded over Russia, over Siberia, just over a week ago. The mission is still in the planning stages and will not be launched until 2022. Well, Jimmie Johnson took the checkered flag at the Daytona 500 Sunday. It was the second time he's won the Super Bowl of stock car racing. None of the mishaps Sunday, fortunately, approached the size of the wreck that injured more than 24 fans Saturday. Daytona International Speedway workers were up until 2 a.m. Sunday repairing the fence that was damaged in that accident. After the race, Johnson gave a shout out to the fans and said his thoughts and prayers were with everyone who was injured in the grandstands on Saturday. Danica Patrick, by the way, finished 8th in the Daytona 500 after winning the pole position a week ago. She was right up there in the top 10 and, in fact, led a lap at one point, Pat. She did pretty well yesterday.
Well, I was pulling for her. I'm not for drafting women, but I'm certainly glad to see women in the draft in the Daytona. She got teammates to draft with her because they like her. She's a nice lady.
She's a very nice lady.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure we'll see lots more of her.
Oh,
in the
you better
future.
believe it. She's a star.
Well, coming up, G.I. Jane is headed to the front lines, but not everybody is thrilled about it. Hear why some vets feel that this change may have deadly consequences, and that's next.
Yea, though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil.
Your God has abandoned you.
Oh, my friends, your faith will be tested now.
Everyone has their price.
What you think the Messiah is coming?
He's already here.
Tuesday, The Secrets of the Universe, straight from Pat Robertson's bestseller.
The foundational growth of societal development.
The keys to success.
It absolutely works.
And happiness.
What a beautiful world it would be if we just did that one thing.
And it's not rocket science, or maybe it is.
Where every action is an equal and opposite reaction.
Tuesday on the 700 Club.
Well, it's the 700 Club. We're starting our week, and we're glad to have you with us. The Pentagon is going ahead with its plans to put women into military combat units. Some consider it a victory for equal rights, as we said before, championed by the feminists. But as Lee Webb reports, others argued it would hurt our nation's ability to fight and win the next war.
America's women have served with distinction in our military, particularly over the last decade in the war on terror.
Everyone is committed to doing the job. They're fighting and they're dying together. And the time has come for our policies to recognize that reality.
That's why Leon Panetta, in one of his last acts as Defense Secretary, opened the door for women to the more than 230,000 positions in infantry, armor, even special operations units like the Rangers and SEALs. Former Army Captain Tanya Domi applauds the decision. She writes, "America once again reaffirms its core values of equality and respect." And she says it's good for our military and our country, too. Retired Army General Jerry Boykin couldn't disagree more. He's one of the founding members of Delta Force and the former commander of Special Operations. He acknowledges that women have served bravely under fire in support roles, but he doesn't believe they're physically up to the challenge of serving in units that pursue, engage, and destroy a hostile force.
It is not the average female that will be able to do that. So it's a readiness issue, and no one is considering readiness.
This is the Army's physical fitness standards, and there is a double standard for men and women. For example, a 22-year-old male soldier is required to do 40 push-ups. A 22-year-old female soldier is required to do only 17. Now, the Pentagon has said if a woman wants to serve at a direct combat unit, she will have to meet the same physical standards as her male counterpart. But listen to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff explain a caveat to that.
If we do decide that a particular standard is so high that a woman couldn't make it, the burden is now on the service to come back and explain to the Secretary, why is it that high? Does it really have to be that high? With the direct combat exclusion provision in place, we never had to have that conversation.
I don't know if that bothers you the way it does me, but that's frightening. And what that really is saying is, if women can't meet the standards, we will lower those standards.
Stay.
Stay down! Stay down!
And Boykin believes it will have life and death consequences, as the HBO series Band of Brothers so powerfully depicts.
Come on, Joe. You're all right.
That's why we give medals of honor. And if you look at every Medal of Honor, it's normally because somebody was trying to save a buddy.
Go, go, go.
Band of Brothers also highlights an aspect of warfare that another expert believes the Pentagon is ignoring. Retired General Robert Scales made the study of warfare his business as the Commandant of the Army War College.
One of the things that neither I nor anyone else, I'd argue, in the military really understands is this so-called Band of Brothers effect. It's this buddy teaming, which makes up the essence of cohesion in small units. Remember, the American soldier really doesn't die for his country, and he doesn't die for the mission. He dies for his buddies.
And Scales believes the Pentagon owes it to those soldiers and Marines to perform an objective study on lifting the band.
Units that are thrown together or who have bad psychology or that are poorly led tend to die in hugely disproportionate numbers. So increasingly, the weight of these wars are falling on the shoulders of this very, very small band of brothers. And before we break it up and reassemble it, we better be darn well sure that we're doing the right thing.
General Scales' two daughters are former Army officers, and both agree with their father on the issue. This West Point grad and former Army captain who asked us to protect her identity also agrees with him. She completed 2 tours in Afghanistan and Iraq, and at one time wanted to serve in a frontline unit. But she changed her mind because of the wear and tear her body took during 5 years of active duty.
I guess I was naive to think that, that I would be invincible forever. But right now, I have 2 small children, and my quality of life is degraded because you can only hold them for so long because your back hurts and you need to put them down. It changes the way I'm able to live.
What does it say about a nation that allows its women to do its fighting for it?
Right now, Congress is working on legislation to protect women from violence and domestic violence. And then on the other hand, we're turning around and saying to women, fix bayonets and charge that group of men over there, most of which are stronger than you, bigger than you, and capable of killing you. It is inconsistent with our ethos. I think the Bible is very clear that we're the stronger sex and we have a moral obligation to protect our women.
For a short time when I was an officer in the Marine Corps, I had a training facility, and I was teaching bayonet fighting, and it's a brutal thing that they teach you to do. I don't know how it is now, but in the old days, you'd take your bayonet and you would lunge at the opposing person, you would stick them right in the gut, and then rip the bayonet up to their throat, and then you would stab them again. Now, that's a tough activity, and I don't know if anybody wants a beautiful woman impaled on the end of somebody else's bayonet, but that's the way for close-in combat. It's not pretty, and If the feminists want it, they're going to get it, but I think they may wish that they had not, been so insistent on destroying the health and the well-being of their fellow sisters. Terry.
Well, still ahead, it's called the eighth wonder of the world, and if used properly, can lead to health, wealth, and spiritual growth. Find out what it is with Pat's teaching from The Secret Kingdom. That's next.
Today we're on a field trip to discover what inflation is doing to our paper money. In this hand is a $20 bill, and in this hand is a $20 US gold coin. They used to have the same buying power, but how much can they buy today? In this first basket is what my $20 bill buys: milk, bread, peanut butter, and jelly. And here's what one $20 gold coin will buy: 6 baskets full, worth nearly $2,000, almost 100 times more food, simply by owning gold dollars instead of paper dollars. History shows that the gold coins have been the best way to beat the rising cost of living. So class, the moral is that unless you want to live on peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in the future, you should turn some paper dollars into gold coins now. How and why is explained in a new book, The Great Debasement. Call the number below for a totally free copy. And that's the simple truth.
I started feeling pain between my spine and my shoulder blade. There was a sizable mass consistent with malignant cancer. That's complex, that's tough stuff.
To find out more about our unique treatment options for complex and advanced stage cancer, go to cancercenter.com. You'll be able to see our treatment results for many types of cancers and how they compare to national averages. You can also check for participating insurance plans. Cancer Treatment Centers of America is different. It's state-of-the-art medicine, unique treatment options, and a level of compassion that cannot be copied. Why? Our people. People who give you not only their expertise, but their humanity and the most well-organized, patient-centered care you'll find anywhere.
My strength came back. I began to become myself again. I'm so happy that I went to CTCA.
Every minute counts when you're fighting complex or advanced stage cancer, so please call or visit cancercenter.com today. Appointments are available now. Cancer Treatment Centers of America. Care that never quits.
Well, a number of years ago, I wrote a book about the immutable laws contained in the New Testament, the teachings of Jesus. I call this book The Secret Kingdom. It became a bestseller, and people around the world have learned from its practical teachings. Well, throughout this week, we're going to show you some of the laws of the secret kingdom, starting with the most important one for human growth and development. There are several principles that I call the laws of the kingdom, and I want to talk about what's probably the most important law of human growth and development, and I call it the law of use. The law of use. How does that work, this law of use? There was a story that Jesus told about a nobleman who called his servants to him and gave them certain sums of money, and then he went into a far country and he said, "You occupy with these till I come back." The first one, he gave 10 talents. To another one, he gave 5 talents. To another one, 1 talent. Now he says, "I'm going away, and I'm going to come back, and you occupy with what I've given you till I get back." So he left and left these people to their own devices. The one who got 10 talents took his master's money and he began to trade with it. He bought goods, took them on a caravan ride to the next country, sold them at a profit, bought additional goods, brought them back, sold them at a profit, traded back and forth, until such time as he had doubled his Lord's money. So now, instead of 10 talents, he's got 20 talents. The one who had 5 talents did the same thing. He exercised what had been given him. He used the money and he made deals. He invested in the stock market. He bought merchandise. He perhaps bought a small business. He did all these things. And when he finished the work he was doing, he doubled his Lord's money. Now, the 5 had become 10. The next one took the 1 talent that was given him, and he said, my master is a tough guy. He is about as hard-nosed a businessman as I'm aware of. He said he gathers where he didn't straw and he reaps where he doesn't sow. And I don't want to run afoul of his nasty cruelty. And so what I'm going to do is dig a hole in the ground and put that money in the hole, cover it up, and then every so often I'm going to come back and look at it, make sure it's still there. And when he comes back, I'll give him his own like I got it. I haven't lost anything. So the Lord came back. He had received the kingdom that he'd gone to get. He called the servants to him and said, okay, I'm interested in what you do with my money. What did you do with the trading that I gave you? So the one with the 10 talents, he came and he said, well, I've doubled your money. And the Lord said, well done, good and faithful servant. I'm going to put you in charge of 20 cities. You are in charge of something. You've shown that you're responsible, and you use my possessions well. The one with 5 talents came, and the Lord said to him, what did you do? And he said, well, I traded with your money. I took risks. I had caravans go over the desert. They bought goods. They sold goods. And over a period of time, I have doubled your money. So you now have 10 talents. And the Lord said, well done, good and faithful servant. I'm now going to put you in charge of 10 cities. The last one came to him, and he says, all right, tell me what you did. And he said, I knew you were a hard man. He said, I knew that you gathered where you didn't straw and that you reaped where you didn't sow. And I was afraid. I was afraid. And so he said, I took your money and I dug a hole in the ground and I put it in it and I'm now taking it out and I haven't lost anything. You know what the Lord said about him? It's an amazing, because it's in the Bible, by the way. He said, you wicked and slothful servant. Wicked and slothful. Wicked. Wicked because he didn't invest his Lord's money. He was wicked because he didn't use what had been given to him. And he said, take that away from him and give it to the man that had the 10 talents. And there was a gasp in the audience. He said, my goodness, this other guy's got 10, he doesn't have anything. You're taking it away from him. And then the Lord gave this principle. He says, unto him who has, more will be given. And he that has not, even what he thinks he's got will be taken away from him. Now, I was looking at that and contemplating the full significance, and I was introduced to what is called the exponential curve, which is a mathematical phenomenon that is simply inexorable. It works in our world. And how does it work? Well, it's the law of compound interest. Baron Rothschild called compound interest the 8th wonder of the world. Why? Well, because if you take a given amount of money and you compound the interest, in other words, each year you get the interest and you add it to the principal, and then you take that again and compound it, over the years, you will have an enormous amount of money. If you take $100, and let's assume that you double it. That's 100%, and not everybody's going to get that, very rarely, but let's assume that you do enough business that you can double $100. So next year you have 200. The next year you have 400. The next year you have 800. The next year 16. The next 36. Next 72. Then 14,000 and 28,000 and so forth. At the end of 20 years, what do you think you'll have? $100, double it every year for 20 years. You will have $50 million in just 20 years. So if you're 30, by the time you're 50, you'll have $50 million. If you can double $100 every year. If you double it some more, at the end of about 25 years, you'll have $1.6 billion. And if you double it for 50 years, you'll have about $12.8 quadrillion. So you'll have more money than there's in the whole world. $100, law of use, you occupy. Now, this is a fundamental principle of human growth and development. But just take, for example, your arm. Assume that you lift your arm, have a weight on your arm, and day by day or week by week, you add a little bit of weight. So you're doing 5 pounds, and then you go to 7 pounds, and then you go to 10 pounds, and then little by little. And before long, believe it or not, you'll have arms like Arnold Schwarzenegger, big, strong. And the ladies say, I don't want arms like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Well, you'll have beautifully shaped arms, whatever. But on the other hand, you take your arm and you bind it against your chest and you don't use it for, say, 8 months. You don't lift anything. When you get through, you won't have the strength to lift a teacup. You will have lost what you have. And that's exactly what Jesus said. Unto him who has, more will be given. And he that has not even what he thinks he's got will be taken away from him. You lose what you don't use. It is the law of use. It is the fundamental law of human growth and development. If you use what's there, if you have musical talent, you use it and train it, you'll get more. If you have intellectual prowess and you use it and train it and explore more and add, and you get compounded and you move into new realms, it will grow enormously. But if you don't use your mind, if you don't use your talents, if you're a singer and you don't sing, you'll lose it. You'll lose your voice. You'll lose your ability. It's true in every aspect of life. The more you exercise something, the more opportunity you have to get into a new level, because you move up and then you move out more and then you get out more and more until you can accomplish amazing things. The law of use, the fundamental law. And this is a law of the kingdom, because Jesus Christ said, unto him who has, more will be given. And he that has not even what he thinks he's got will be taken away from him.
Amazing. That was by far, I think, your most popular book, was it not? The Secret Kingdom?
It was a runaway bestseller, and it's gone worldwide. It's touched many, many lives. Because, Terry, these are foundational laws,
yes.
and they resonate with people because they're true, and you can push them on every aspect, and they work in every aspect of life.
Well, you took what was written in the Word that we've read for years, and then you showed us how to apply that to
the Lord
everyday
showed
life.
Me
yeah.
that
Amazing.
These were foundational laws. I kept praying and asking for wisdom, and this is what he showed me.
Well, we're going to be playing more teachings from the Secret Kingdom all throughout this week. You can also watch them if you'd like and share them with your friends by going to our website. Go to cbn.com and then click the I Saw It on the 700 Club link. Time for some email. Are you ready?
Let's go for it.
Okay. Pat, this first Bring It On question is from Carson. Carson says, I have a question about the law of use. You say he who has been given who has been trusted with more will be given more. I want to serve God. However, I don't have much to offer. I don't make much money. I'm afraid I can't offer much and won't be given much in return. What can I do?
Oh, Carson, you have mixed up a couple of laws. There's also the law of responsibility, which says, unto him to whom much is given, much will be required. So if you're given an inheritance of $1 billion, don't come out and say, well, I had a $100 return. You've been given a lot, you're expected to have a lot. That's the law of responsibility. The law of use said you use what's been given to you and it'll grow. That's the exponential curve. And my example there was to take $100. You say, I don't have anything. Do you have $100? You have $50, $20, whatever. And you begin to exercise that. And that's the concept, not that you don't have a lot of money. Remember that parable Jesus gave about the widow and her mite? He said she's given more than all the rich people with all their big gifts because she gave all she had.
Well, and this isn't just about money, as you said.
No, it's
about everything.
Talents,
your talents,
it's everything.
Your mind, everything.
But you use what's been given to you and you'll have more. But the law of responsibility is if you're given a whole lot, you're expected to perform a lot.
Okay, this is Lynn, who says, I'm an investment banker. I managed a large account, and because of the recession, I lost a lot of money for a lot of people. I thought I was doing everything right. I thought I was like the person who was trusted with the many talents. I thought I invested it properly, and I thought I was putting the law of use into practice. What did I do wrong?
Lynn, first of all, it's your definition. You don't lose money in the market until you sell something. You don't. Your account has gone down in nominal value, but you haven't lost anything until you sell. When you sell, then you've booked a loss. I manage a lot of money too, and one of the accounts I had last year didn't do terribly well. It was down, instead of going up a lot, it went down maybe 8% or so. And I thought this is not too good. But I hung in there with the same, because I had an appropriate investment philosophy. I was going at the time for the master limited partnerships that throw out big dividends, and I just felt that they'd come back, and lo and behold, with the first 30 days of this year, that account went up 10%. So I got back what I didn't have and more besides. So the stock market fluctuates, so what did you do wrong? The question is, if you were trying to hit a big score and you did something foolish, the law of use will not protect you from folly. I mean, if you take everything and put it on some flyer, you're going to, speculate on carrot greens or something, and you lose it all. But if you're a good investment manager, you'll have a balanced portfolio, and you'll study, and you'll be all right. So don't quit. It'll come back. There's cycles. All right.
This is Kate, who says, I was raised in a children's home, so I did not know either parent, nor do I know what they look like. Will I recognize them in heaven, or will they know me in heaven?
The Bible's not too clear about that, but the answer is, I'll give you is yes. I think you'll know your parents, they'll know you.
But do you remember the little boy in the Heaven is Real book, and how he met his sister, who his mother had a pregnancy that was not aborted, but it was just
a miscarriage.
Miscarriage, right.
And he saw the little girl.
And she knew who he was.
And he also recognized a grandparent that he'd never seen before. So I think the answer is, but that's extra biblical, but I think the answer is yes, all right?
Okay, this is Pam, who says, I know that in the Bible it says to honor your parents. How can you honor a parent who was abusive while you were growing up and is still abusive? And how do you honor the other parent who never stood up for you to protect you?
The Greek on honor is timeo, and it means give weight to. There's only one person who conceived you, one sperm, one egg, one father, one mother. That's all. You don't have any others. So you give weight to the fact that that's where you came from, and you don't ignore it. But at the same time, if they're abusive, if they try to take you away from the Lord, the best thing to do is to ignore it. Mm-hmm. You give weight to the fact they're your parents. And,
Yes, respect that role, but not necessarily allowing
For this cause shall a man leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife, and the twain shall be one flesh. You grow up, you leave home, you get married, and so you now have formed a new unit. But you give honor, always honor. I read about Ibn Saud, who's the Saudi Arabia is named after, he was the king of, you know, when he was putting that country together. He honored his father so much, and he's the king now, that when his father would come on a horse, Ibn Saud would kneel down on the ground in front of him so the father could step off the horse and not risk. That shows, you know, true honor. That was honoring his father. So,
making a show of it,
yeah,
yes.
but if abusive, you don't have to be involved with them, really. I mean, if you know, the big thing, recognize that they're your parents. You only have one set of them.
Okay, Pat, this is Carrie, who says, I buy a lot of clothes and other items at Goodwill and other secondhand shops. Recently, my mom told me that I need to pray over the items, bind familiar spirits, and bless the items before I bring them into the house. Is my mother correct? Can demons attach themselves to material items?
I heard a story in I believe, the Philippines, a person who went to Thailand. There was a witch who had prayed over a particular ring and asked for a spirit to come into it. Well, this Philippine girl was so attached to this ring, she had to buy it. She bought it, and all hell broke loose till she finally recognized what it was. So can demonic spirits attach themselves to inanimate objects? The answer is yes. But I don't think every sweater you get from Goodwill has demons in it. but in a sense, your mother's just being super cautious, so hey, it didn't go hurt you anything to rebuke any spirits that happen to have attached themselves to those clothes. I think that's all the time we've got. Thanks so much for your questions. We'll be enjoying this all week long as we have more teaching on the secret kingdom. We're going to talk about the fundamental law of human relationship tomorrow, the law of well, we'll see how that works out. All right.
Got some wonderful things coming up throughout the week. Coming up later today, we're going to be praying for you and your needs. And you'll hear about how the prayers from this program helped a baby who was born with the heart defect. So don't go away.
That check you get every month from a structured settlement as a result of a lawsuit or from an annuity may not be enough to pay for all the bills that are piling up. If you're having trouble making ends meet, it can feel like you're adrift in a sea of uncertainty. You might think you're sunk, but now there's help. Peachtree can turn your structured settlement or annuity into cash today. Cash you can use to pay off debt, avoid foreclosure, pay bills, get a new house, or buy a new car. Money does grow on trees. Call Peachtree to turn your future payments into immediate cash when you need it most. Wherever you need help, Peachtree is there for you. The money from your structured settlement or annuity is yours. You deserve to have it, and Peachtree can help you get it.
To find out more, call Peachtree today at 1-800-PEACHTREE. That's 1-800-PEACHTREE. Or log on to settlementfunding.com.
Life doesn't wait. Why should you?
Welcome back to the 700 Club. Israel and the U.S. have successfully tested an anti-missile system to defend Israel from an Iranian strike. Israel's defense ministry says the joint exercise was a major milestone in the development of the Arrow 3 weapons system. The Arrow is produced jointly by Israel Aerospace Industries as well as Boeing. It detects an incoming missile and destroys it with a second missile. Iran's Shabab ballistic missile can carry a nuclear warhead, and it can easily reach Israel. CBN International provided medical help to more than 300,000 people in Cambodia. The aid came during a 5-day medical outreach in 4 remote villages. CBN gave free medical and dental care to adults and children and distributed more than 1,200 free sets of eyeglasses. These medical events give CBN a chance to share the love of Jesus. More than 700 adults and nearly 300 children professed faith in Jesus Christ as a result of that mission. You can find out more about what CBN is doing around the world by logging on to cbn.com/international. Stay tuned. Pat and Terry will be back with more of the 700 Club after this.
Connie and I love having cell phones because of the freedom they give us. So why would we want to be tied down to a contract?
Life's too short.
And Consumer Cellular gives us control over how and when we use them and what we pay.
And compared to our old plan, we're saving a ton of money every month.
So, what really sold us on Consumer Cellular was that they're the exclusive wireless provider for AARP members.
AARP? That's a huge deal.
Was it complicated to switch? Not a bit. They make it super simple. You can even keep your number.
Oh, that's nice.
Consumer Cellular, affordable service without the contracts. Try Consumer Cellular risk-free for 30 days with free activation, a $35 value, and free shipping. Or just pick it up at a Sears store. Plans start as low as $10 a month.
Call Consumer Cellular at 1-800-393-4301. Go to consumercellulartv.com or visit a Sears store today.
In Honduras, many people can't afford the most basic medical care, so Operation Blessing set up clinics with free doctor's visits and medicine. And for a baby in one village, that meant the difference between life and death.
When 3-month-old Brian woke up with a cough, his mother wasn't too worried and prepared some home remedies. Hours later, Brian got worse.
He began to cough and had a fever. Then it became hard for him to breathe. I thought we were losing him, that he was going to die.
I panicked. I thought, we are poor. We don't have money for a doctor or a clinic.
That's when they remembered a clinic in another town that had medicine donated from an organization in America. But it was already late and the clinic was closed. The next morning, Maricruz raced to the clinic.
When I got there, I saw all these people, but I was so desperate, I just ran into one of the doctor's offices and said, "Help me, my son is dying."
The doctor quickly checked Brian and told his mother that he had pneumonia. But as soon as Brian received his first breathing treatment with medicine provided by Operation Blessing, he started to perk up. The doctor then gave Brian's mom strong antibiotics that had also been given to the clinic by Operation Blessing. Those antibiotics saved Brian's life.
The doctor told me what to do, and I gave him all of the medicine.
Within a few days, Brian was feeling much better. And when his mom took him back to the clinic 10 days later, the doctor gave Brian a clean bill of health.
I don't know how to thank you saving my son's life with that wonderful medicine. May God bless Operation Blessing.
A young mom and dad with no means to get medical help for their child. And then in the very village they live in, the very remote village they live in, an Operation Blessing medical team arrived. That kind of thing happens because you care enough to join the 700 Club. That's why we ask you on a regular basis, will you partner with us in this kind of work around the world? It's happening here in the United States as well as all around the globe, and we want to invite you to be a part of it. It's 65 cents a day. That's just $20 a month for you to be a 700 Club member. When we all join together, we can make a tremendous difference. So will you call now and be a part of what we're doing to help others? Our number's toll free. It's 1-800-759-0700. Just go to the phone, call right now and say, I want to join the 700 Club. When you do, our way of saying thank you for joining with us is to send you Gordon's latest teaching. It's called Life Beyond the Grave Part 2. It's fascinating. Accounts from different people who died. Some went to heaven, some went to hell. They all came back to share the experience that they had had. We'd love for you to hear what they had to say. I think it's life impacting. So call that toll-free number on your screen, 1-800-759-0700. Say, I want to join the 700 Club. We'll get that out to you right away. And by the way, you can also join with us by logging on to cbn.com. Well, Ida Garabedian went to 8 different doctors, and they all said the same thing. Ultrasound showed that Ida's unborn child had a heart that was too small, so they suggested an abortion. But Ida's family had a different idea. They turned on the 700 Club.
October 17, 2008 was Ida Garabedian's birthday. She and her husband John were expecting their second child, and the couple had gone in for a routine ultrasound.
They looked a little bit concerned about one issue, and they wanted to find out more about that.
As the Garabedians prepared to go to dinner that night to celebrate Ida's birthday, they received a call from Ida's doctor. who informed her that her son had hypoplastic left heart syndrome.
We opened up the computer and we just started reading all these details about what hypoplastic left heart syndrome is, and it was horrible. It was horrible news. We were devastated.
The doctors were speaking to us about all the different chromosomal issues that there might be, so any type of retardations or Down syndrome.
The doctors even suggested to Ida that she consider terminating her pregnancy.
I said, you know, we're not going to terminate this baby. I can't imagine doing that. I said, well, I'll deal with whatever comes. God will take care of this. He said, you say that now, but you don't know how hard it really is going to be.
That evening, Ida's father, who was out of town on business, turned on the 700 Club.
I happened to turn on the television, and the end of the 700 Club program was on, and Terry Meeuwsen was speaking at the end of the program.
Somebody else, you've just gotten a diagnosis, you're pregnant, that there's something wrong with your baby, and it's even been suggested that you consider aborting it. But God is saying to you, trust me, have faith. What they're telling you is the problem with your child is not the problem. Trust God.
Robert called Ida, and she and John went online to watch The Word of Knowledge and claimed it for their baby. Over the next 5 months, they enlisted other family members and prayer partners at CBN to stand with them in prayer.
Every time there was a doubt, God would place someone or with encouraging words or a Bible verse that would just, the words would jump out at me, and I knew God was speaking to me.
As Ida's pregnancy advanced, doctors warned her to prepare for a series of several surgeries after birth.
They were suggesting that we need to do a 3-stage surgery on him to make all of his heart work only from his right side. So every ultrasound we went to, they would pretty much say the same thing.
But the Garabedians continued to believe God.
No matter what these tests were showing at the doctor's offices, my God was bigger than these tests. And he gave us that promise that he was gonna take care of it and he was gonna heal him.
My prayer specifically was, Lord, give this child a whole heart so that he can wholeheartedly serve you in the future.
Little John was born on March 10th, 2009, and doctors prepared the Garabedians for what lay ahead.
The whole issue with John was his mitral valve, and when he was born, they went back and they did the echogram on his heart, and they saw that the mitral valve was still a lot smaller than what it was supposed to be. It was measuring about 5.6 millimeters. They were looking for about 10. And there was about a 6-day waiting period before the surgery was going to happen. So I had asked one of the pediatric cardiologists if they would do another echogram the night before. And he was very hesitant, and he said there was no need for it because the mitral valve doesn't grow.
The next day, John went into surgery and was taken off the heart bypass machine after just 29 minutes.
The doctor came in and he said, you know, everything went well with the surgery, and John is going to be fine. He's not going to need any more surgeries. And well, I asked him, what about the mitral valve? And he said, well, the mitral valve measured at least a 9 millimeter. So it was a little bit larger than what we expected it to be. And we were so rejoiced, and we knew that, you know, there it is. The Lord said it wasn't going to, it's not going to be what the doctor said it is.
Today, little John is a perfectly healthy 4-year-old. Ida and John say their experience has taught them to truly trust God.
This whole process just exploded our faith to know that He is going to do it. We always knew He could do it, but now we know He is going to take care of us. We don't look at our circumstances. We look at God, and we focus on Jesus and Him telling us His promises in the Word. Nothing is impossible with me. I'm with you always, and He'll never leave us.
I love what she says, because I think it's so true for so many of us. We know He can do it. Now we know He will do it. And that's a great word to share as we go into prayer time.
Terry, here's somebody else, by the way. We've got a couple of these. We want to pray for people in a minute. But this is Larry of Port St. Lucie, Florida, who developed a pain in the right side of his head. It was so severe that he would feel it deep in the inside. And one day he was watching, he heard Terry give a word. Someone, you've had migraines, you get these flashing lights when you have them. God is setting you free from that condition, and you won't have them anymore. Immediately the pain went away, had never returned. Larry is giving glory to God.
Well, let me read this one
All
from
right,
Karen.
please.
She lives in Olivia, Minnesota. She had a deep cough. It was getting worse. The condition became so terrible she couldn't sleep anymore. Day and night she was crying out to the Lord for help. The doctor diagnosed her with an infection of the throat airways. Then one day she was watching our program and Karen heard you, Pat, say, "You have a deep cough. You're coughing and crying out to God. Please help me." God's heard your prayer. You're going to feel warmth in your lungs. Karen said immediately she felt a warmth start in her back and go through her chest. The cough left and she could breathe freely immediately.
I didn't know Carolyn, and I don't think Terry knew Larry, but God knew them. God knows you. He knows your name. He knows what's going on in your life. And right now, He wants to touch you. He wants to heal you. So we're going to join hands together right now on this program, and we're going to pray for you. And Father, in Jesus' name, we pray together. Terry and I agree for those in this audience who are suffering. There's somebody that has something in your intestines. They're convoluted, somehow twisted, and the doctors have said you need surgery. You've been in great pain. God right now has straightened that out. Those intestines are coming loose, and whatever blockage is there is going through, and you are healed in the name of Jesus. Terry.
There's someone also named Thomas, and your situation is not so much medical, but it's just there's a roadblock in your life, and you feel like there's no way for it ever to be climbed over or gone around or gone through. God is going to make a way for you, Thomas, that you cannot see right now. It will all be well. Trust Him.
There's a deep sorrow coming over a man in this audience. You just feel this deep sorrow. You just want to sob. You're so sad. And I believe the name's Charlie, but that's not what is important. What's important is God setting you free. He's lifting that burden, and He's giving you a garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. Right now, He's giving you joy in the name of Jesus.
Someone else you've been diagnosed with, you think it's pneumonia, but it is in your lungs, and your back just aches every time you cough. God is healing that condition for you right now. Take a deep breath, and it's gone.
And right now, for those in this audience, God's meeting your financial needs. He's taking care of your family. There's nothing impossible with Him. He's heard, He's answered your prayer. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
And amen. Well, that's all the time we have for this edition of the 700 Club. Tomorrow, around the world in 11 months. Hear why one young girl is making a global trek. And today we leave you with these words from Proverbs chapter 30. Every word of God is pure. He is a shield to those who put their trust in Him. It's all the time we've got. Thank you for being with us. For Terry and Lee and all of us, this is Pat Robertson. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Tuesday, The Secrets of the Universe, straight from Pat Robertson's bestseller.
The foundational growth of societal development.
The keys to success.
It absolutely works.
And happiness.
What a beautiful world it would be if we just did that one thing.
And it's not rocket science, or maybe it is.
Where every action is an equal and opposite reaction.
Tuesday on the 700 Club.
It felt like nothing at first, but then it started getting worse and worse. In like a week, it started to hurt.
I saw pretty bad infection, so I kind of got upset and really scared.
She thought if I wouldn't do something about it, it would eat my toe off, literally.
I record the 700 Club every day, so I was watching it, and I heard Terry say,
there's someone, a parent, you're praying for a child named Timothy. God has heard your prayer, and the thing you've asked for will be done.
And it was just such a personal word of knowledge. I just got really emotional.
I thought that it would get healed in a couple of days, and I was really happy. But it turned out it got healed in a couple of hours, actually.
I did see a change right away.
I felt really good because I could run with Mom on the jogging trails, and I could do all the stuff that I wanted to do before.